Hello YouTube, Sean Bradley here and welcome to another episode of Sean Bradley Reviews, where I will be taking a look at the 8th entry in the Fast and Furious franchise, titled Fast and Furious 8, or also known in other territories as The Fate of the Furious.
The plot follows Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel, and his wife Letty, played by Michelle Rodriguez, who are contacted by DSS agent Luke Hobbs, played by Dwayne Johnson, to reassemble their crew and retrieve an EMP that he hears will be stolen by cyber-terrorist Cypher, played by Charlize Theron. However, Dominic is forced by Cypher to betray the ones closest to him and start working for her. The crew, Hobbs, and Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell, are forced to rely on the help of their old enemy, Deckard Shaw, played by Jason Statham, in order to stop Cypher and bring Dom back.
The first film in the franchise,
The Fast and the Furious, which was directed by Rob Cohen, came out in 2001 when I was just 7 years old.
I did not have any interest in the franchise at that point. I still was not interested when
the second film, Too Fast, Too Furious, directed by John Singleton, came out in 2003. I didn't even go and see the third film, The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, when it came out in 2006. However, I did like the tune for the film's theme song by the Japanese hip-hop group Teriyaki Boys. That entry of the film was directed by Justin Lin, who would go on to direct the next 3 films in the franchise. When the 4th film, Fast and Furious, came out, I decided to actually try and see this film, but I didn't see the other 3 beforehand. I succeeded in watching the first film, but failed to get through the second due to other things getting in the way. I did not see Fast and Furious 5 when it first came out, and had attempted to see it, but still didn't see the other 4 films besides the first one. At this point, the series had developed a habit of changing their titles for international releases, retitling the 5th film as Fast 5 for its release in the United States. The more I thought about it when they kept on churning these out, it seemed to dawn on me that these films were a cash grab. In a world where cinema has lost its originality and was churning out sequels, remakes, and reboots, the films became formulaic. I didn't even bother seeing Fast and Furious 6, which did not get its name changed for the US release. Then, on November 30th, 2013, the lead star of the franchise, Paul Walker, tragically died in a single-vehicle crash while he and another passenger, Roger Rodas, were leaving a charity event for Walker's charity Reach Out Worldwide. At the time of his death, he was in the middle of filming Furious 7, directed by James Wan.
Universal put the film on an indeterminate hiatus, giving the cast and crew time to grieve, and held a conference call to determine how to proceed with the shooting of the film in a manner that was respectful to Paul Walker's memory. Although there was some consideration to scrap the film altogether,
production eventually continued, with the film being pushed back from its July 11th, 2014 release date to April 3rd, 2015. Stunt doubles, body doubles, and CGI were used to complete Walker's role of Brian O'Connor. Even his brothers Caleb and Cody Walker were used among the doubles, and to provide the voiceover for the character. A deleted scene from Fast 5 was used, and some of Brian's dialogue from previous films was rotoscoped into a scene for this film.
In anticipation of seeing Furious 7, or as it's known in England as Fast and Furious 7, I watched all the films on television and ended up really liking them. I then went to see Fast and Furious 7 and really loved that, including the ending where they had retired the character of Brian O'Connor as opposed to the typical cliche of killing him off.
This film is directed by F. Gary Gray, who had started his career with an uncredited appearance as an extra in the satire comedy Major League, before directing the music video for rapper Ice Cube's song It Was a Good Day 3 years later. He would later go on to direct subsequent videos for Ice Cube, as well as many other artists, before making his feature directorial debut at the age of 24 with Friday, which starred and was co-written by Ice Cube. He then followed that up with Set It Off, The Negotiator, A Man Apart, and the 2003 American remake of the 1969 British heist film The Italian Job, for which he had garnered the Best Director award at the 2004 American Black Film Festival. He then followed that up with Be Cool, the 2005 sequel to Get Shorty, and the 2009 thriller Law Abiding Citizen. Both were critical flops, but had made back their budgets at the box office. 6 years later, Gray returned to form when he directed 2015's Straight Outta Compton, a biopic about the rap group NWA, which also made references to Gray's debut feature, as Ice Cube is one of the central characters in the biopic. The film was a critical and commercial success and received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay.
Now onto the review of this film. I thought that this was a brilliant film. Though this is the first film without Paul Walker, part of me did not feel that this film was not the same, because I forgot that he was a part of the series.
They do make a reference to him and to Mia, Dominic's sister, played in the previous entries by Jordana Brewster.
There is a grand gesture that Dominic does to honour Brian at the end of the film, but I will not spoil that for anyone that hasn't seen this film. The cast in this film do a terrific job, with Vin Diesel playing a character who is forced to regress back to his old ways, which harkens back to the first film when Dominic was the villain of the piece and Brian was the hero.
There are times when he can overact and use an inflection on the wrong word and raise his voice, but through his emotions you can see the pain that he feels when he is deprived of something and is forced to do something that he doesn't want to do.
The rest of the cast give great performances.
Michelle Rodriguez as Letty is at the emotional core of the piece.
When Dominic turns against them, she defends Dom when everyone is against him. Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham are also great,
having great chemistry together. They are forced to work together after Mr. Nobody breaks them out of prison. The way that they play off each other in the threats that they deliver is awesome. Tyrese Gibson is pretty great in this as Roman, the comic relief of the film. He is the one with the one-liners and is sometimes whiny.
But still, he's great. New to the film is Charlize Theron
as Cypher, the franchise's first female villain. She is brilliant in her performance. She seems so remorseless and is using threats against Dominic in order to get her way. Her monotonous speech pattern is cold.
There's a scene where she is comforting Dominic over a serious incident, which again I will not give away, although it's not comforting more than it's her telling him to man up, even though he has a right to be sad.
Helen Mirren joins the cast as the mother of Owen and Deckard Shaw.
They try to make a twist out of this by making the dialogue in the scene with her and Dominic so vague that they can just conceal the fact that she is the mother of Owen and Deckard, but it just came off as so obvious. Also, I think it might be the first time that I've ever heard Helen Mirren talk in a Cockney accent. Her Cockney accent kind of threw me a bit, because I wasn't expecting that at all. Scott Eastwood is also new to the cast.
As Mr. Nobody's partner, Little Nobody, he is good in his performance, as well as Kurt Russell, who is not new to the cast as he had first appeared in Furious 7, but I have not mentioned him in the review in a while, so he was good.
Also, Elsa Pataky reprises her role as
DSS agent Elena Neves, who has a supporting role in the film as the driving force for Dominic, showing that he is doing these things for a more personal reason, but I will not spoil why she's here.
The set pieces in this film are amazing.
There's only one street race in the entire film, and it's at the beginning, and it is so phenomenal at what these people can do with their cars. The action sequences are astounding, with their protagonists driving to or away from the antagonists, and the stunts leave you feeling a cringe, thinking that's gonna hurt in the morning. The scene where Hobbs and Deckard break out of prison, which goes on to create a riot, is so astounding. This has got to be the grisliest prison riot that I saw since Natural Born Killers.
One of my favourite action sequences in this film takes place in New York City and involves Cypher's henchmen
hacking into a majority of the cars in the city and turning on the auto-drive function so that the cars are driving by themselves. It's jaw-dropping that they're able to do that. It's like the film Christine, except without the supernatural element. There's a bit of the sequence where cars are being programmed to drive out of the multi-story car parks, which put me in mind of the mass suicide scene from The Happening.
And the fact that I saw this film in D-Box made the ride of the stunts exciting. F. Gary Gray has a fair amount of experience with stunt work from some of the action films that he had directed. Out of all of his films prior to seeing this, I had only seen
Law-Abiding Citizen, The Negotiator, and Straight Outta Compton.
The film is also funny in some scenes and does not take itself too seriously with its action film genre. So to sum up, Fast and Furious 8, or The Fate of the Furious, whatever you want to call it, is an entry in the franchise that manages to one-up the past predecessors of the franchise in terms of its stunts. The acting from the cast is great, especially from Vin Diesel and Charlize Theron. However, you may want to see the others first before seeing this entry. I give this film an 8 out of 10. This is Sean Bradley signing out. I'll see you later. Bye.
Raise a cup up for all my day ones. 2 middle fingers for the haters. Let's only getting greater. Straight up from nothing we go. Higher than the highest skyscraper. No little league we major. The proof is in the paper. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright.
Hey Lonnie, I got you. Yeah, and it's a feeling that I can't explain. How you make it in your team still stay the same. Stay down from the jump and they never